Reddit seems to agree that the best quality leap in all fantasy is to jump between Stephen King's The Gunslinger and its sequel, The Drawing of the Three. And when I saw that thread, I found myself in the perfect position to give this collective opinion the attention it deserved, as I had just started rereading The Dark Tower and I would soon jump from book 1 to book 2. Not only that, but I'm a huge Stephen King fan. This is my 10-year-old Dark Tower tattoo, okay? And to start things off, I agree. I think The Gunslinger is a brilliant book, but The Drawing of the Three is special. It might be the best fantasy book ever written. But there's no point in talking about it in broad terms. What are the little details, the poetics, the techniques that turn good writing into incredible writing? This is a vast and complex question to explore, so instead of trying to encompass everything, let me focus my lens and bring you to a narrative place that made my brain go kaboom. Something that made all the difference and brought that second book to a whole new level. Something that most fantasy books, and I mean most of them, don't dare to do. But before we jump ahead and go to the sequel, we must, of course, start from the beginning.
The man in black fled across the desert, and the gunslinger followed.
Not only this is fantasy's most legendary opening line, an opening line so influential that it became the gold standard for the genre itself, but it's also followed by a powerful first page full of juicy aesthetics, wonderful prose, and a deep sense of adventure. It showcases the best of the Gunslinger, the quality of its writing, and its interesting ideas, though those ideas will still take a few chapters to take off. But in a way, when it comes to the quality of the prose, I'm not particularly interested in the first page. Writers just spend more time in that part of the book than in any other. That is the convincing factor, the hook. What caught my attention here was not the best bits, but the average quality of the prose and the whole of the book. King writes beautifully in every single chapter. For example, let me bring you to a description of a minor character, not one that will be important for the rest of the series or anything, but a sea-level character in the book.
A huge pillar of a neck overtopped by a pasty white moon of a face, in which blinked eyes so large and so dark they seemed to be bottomless tarns. Her hair was a beautiful rich brown, and it was piled atop her head in a haphazard sprawl, held by a hairpin almost big enough to be a meat skewer. She wore a dress that seemed to be made of burlap. The arms that held the hymnal were slabs. Her skin was creamy, unmarked, lovely. He thought that she must top 300 pounds. He felt a sudden red lust for her that made him feel shaky, and he turned his head and looked away.
I find those poetics evocative, they tickle my emotions, and they fit the epic vibe of the story of the Dark Tower. It's not just good word choices, it's fitting a context. But that context is about to change. There's a curveball coming, and this is where we start to move to the territory of interesting ideas. Listen, I'm gonna have to give you some minor spoilers from now on, but I've chosen them very carefully. I'm not here to ruin this for you. I'm here to convince you to fall in love with this story. That being said, not long after we start following the Gunslinger's long and magical journey, he bumps into Jake Chambers, an 11-year-old from 1977 New York. And I don't mean magical New York, I don't mean novellos yorcaros, I mean the New York me and you know about. This posh little boy somehow escaped into another world, and this is where the interesting ideas start. Because The Dark Tower is a story about a multiverse. but not your Magic the Gathering or Dungeons and Dragons garden variety of multiverse, not one with clearly defined boundaries and rules for crossing the planes where if you're a level 20 wizard you can just jump around and guess what, there are wars between the planes. No, nothing of the sort. In this world building here, the connections between the worlds are strange, subtle, mysterious. The characters themselves don't have the answers. They mostly trust that destiny, or Ka, will push them forward. The only certainty is that in the middle of it all, of all the versions, of all the timelines, of all universes, lies the Dark Tower. The central point of the web that keeps reality together. And Roland, the Gunslinger, wants in. He wants to open its gates and climb its stairs. And now that Roland and Jake are traveling together, little by little they're finding out just how different their worlds are. How the hell will Jake explain to this Arthurian desperado what a TV show is? Roland looks at this private schoolboy and thinks, he has grit. Maybe you could teach him how to use a gun. The clash between the epic world of the Gunslinger and, in a very real way, the epic world of Jake's New York is what creates this dance of meanings and expectations. Each of them finds the other's world mysterious in different ways. And this is where fantasy authors generally don't go. They create their own isolated magical world so that we don't have to really think about our own. And even when that magical world is a hidden subset of our world, the characters generally understand how our world works. Here, not really. Roland is lost in our ways. This story here, it happens in the threshold between our reality and another reality. It happens in the coastline between them, that bit with a lot of biodiversity. The story itself is a door between worlds. And this idea, that was already there in the first book, will take a fascinating turn when we get to the sequel.
It was a door. It stood 6.5 feet high and appeared to be made of solid ironwood, although the nearest ironwood tree must grow 700 miles or more from here. The doorknob looked as if it were made of gold and was filigreed with a design which the gunslinger finally recognized. It was the grinning face of a baboon. He tottered graciously to his feet and walked above the door and around to the other side. There was no other side. Only the dark grey strand stretching back and back, only the waves, the shells, the high tide line, the marks of his own approach, boot prints and holes that had been made by his elbows. He looked again and his eyes widened a little. The door wasn't here, but its shadow was. The gunslinger walked slowly back to the other side of what wasn't there, already thinking it had been a hallucination to start with. He stopped. At one moment, he had been looking west in an uninterrupted view of a grey rolling wave, and then his view was interrupted by the thickness of the door. He could see its key plate, which also looked like gold, with the latch protruding from it like a shabby metal tongue. Roland moved his head an inch to the north and the door was gone. Moved it back to where it had been and there it was again. It did not appear, it was just there.
This door, standing on the beach and leading to another world, another time, is the captivating symbol and the piece of world building that guides book number 2. But, and I think you'll agree with me when I say that, the door could have been a symbol in the first book, right? The idea of crossing the multiverse was already there. The world we were exploring was already magical and mysterious. We had a character from New York. But while Jake Chambers, our private schoolboy, is indeed from our world, he is a product of a time when Stephen King was yet to master characterization. And that becomes awfully clear when we open that door on the beach and we meet Eddie Dean.
Well,
Eddie said,
was van door number 1? Wasn't so hot. Was van door number 2? Even worse. So So now, instead of quitting like sane people, we're gonna go right on ahead and check out door number 3. The way things have been going, I think it's likely to be something like Godzilla or like Ghidorah, the 3-headed monster. But I'm an optimist. Still kind of hoping for the stainless steel cookware.
The words he uses, the slang, the pop culture references, the way his mind can't have 3 thoughts without a sarcastic remark punctuating them. Eddie Dean is New York incarnate, and we see this through the medium of prose. This is not just beautiful, evocative prose anymore, it is all of that, but it's also specific prose. Let me give you another example. This is him trying to give a very sick Roland his antibiotics.
The gunslinger smiles and tries to black out, but Eddie slaps him hard. Roland's blue eyes fly open, and for a moment they're so alive and electric Eddie looks uneasy. Then his hips draw back in a smile that is almost a snarl.
Yeah, it's drawn off,
he said.
First, gotta take your dope. It's time. Sound says this anyway, I guess. I was never no Boy Scout, so I don't know for sure. But I guess it's close enough for government work. Open wide, Roland. Open wide for Dr. Eddie, you kidnapping
Roland doesn't know what droning off is, or what dope is, or what a Boy Scout is, and that's the fun of it. In a contemporary novel set in New York, this prose would be good, would be fitting. But in a novel that's about the clashing of different realities, it becomes special. And sure, many times those realities clash in ways that don't involve specific language, and those passages of the text are flavorful in their own right. For example, here's a part where Roland, now on the other side, is looking for a pharmacy in New York.
The gunslinger had known magicians, enchanters, and alchemists in his time. This is only to say that his experience of magic and magicians had led him to expect something quite different than what he did find in Katz's drugstore. He had anticipated a dim, candlelit room full of bitter fumes, jars of unknown powders and liquids and filters, many covered with a thick layer of dust or spun about with a century's cobwebs. He had expected a man in a cowl, a man who might be dangerous. He saw people moving about inside through the transparent plate glass windows as casually as they would in a shop, and believed they must be an illusion. Roland was so appalled by the place, in a place that promised alchemy but dealt more in perfume than potion. Was it any wonder that wonder had run out?
I find this subversion of expectations fascinating. It shows us a bit about the gunslinger's world and experience, while also re-signifying our own understanding of our world and what a pharmacy could mean. But there's something even richer about this cultural exchange when it happens in the realm of language in addition to the realm of meaning. My favorite bits are the ones when Eddie has to translate something Roland said, or the other way around.
We'll have to move very fast or we'll find ourselves basted in hot oats, Roland had said, and Eddie was pretty sure the guy meant that.
If they didn't shuck and jive at damn near the speed of light, their gooses were gonna be cooked.
Both the expressions we see here are brimming with flavor, and yet they couldn't be more different from one another. The Gunslinger was a great book that started exploring those themes, but the drawing of the 3 brought it to a whole new level, to a linguistic level, in addition to all the wonderful world building. Specific language, folks, and spectacularly done here, because it elevates both our world's slang and expressions, but also Roland's world's ritualistic and somehow archaic way of speaking to a whole new level by the sheer force of comparison. It invites you to pay attention to details that might have passed you by. That's one of the reasons, and in my opinion, the main reason why Reddit was so sure about the jump in quality here. And there's a moment there, a special moment later in the book, when Roland himself uses an expression from our world. And this is where I'm not going to cross the spoiler barrier, so all I can say is that it involves the word honk, and that it's one of those times when a book makes you roar with laughter. Better still, I was not laughing alone. Eddie Dean was also laughing himself silly with me. If you recognize that part of the work, come back here and write me a comment. Hi, Joriam from the future here, and welcome to the French Pyrenees. It's kind of hard to have a hard time when you're in a place that kind of looks like the Shire. Most of you read that community post a couple of months ago, and you know, I had a hard year. But by the way, I lost that job. Wonderful. I just wanted to drop by here to say thank you. When I was at my worst, this community here turned to me and said, hey man, take a break. You don't need to make videos. You don't need to do anything. Take care of yourself. And that helped. Thank you so much. I am doing so much better. I'm so happy to be making videos again. Oh my god. Let me also thank the many creators who helped with this video. YouTuber Tim Hickson and also YouTuber Dice from Lost Magics. Billy, a friend of a friend who lended me this incredible New York accent. Thank you so much, Billy. And also the many illustrators. You saw many pieces of fan art throughout the video. All the links will be below as always. And also a huge thank you to my patrons. I thought to myself, well, if I don't make videos for like 3 months because my life is difficult, I'm just gonna lose all my patrons. And that's that. I'll start from scratch what to do. And this is not what happened. Actually, I had 2 patrons who raised their patronship. So, wow. Thank you for believing in me and not just feeling this is a commercial exchange. Thank you. I wanna give it back to you a millionfold. And that's it, folks. I might have lost my mind and also my editor, but I'm back and it will be my pleasure to make videos for you again. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.